Good afternoon and welcome to iQuanta's YouTube channel. Okay, that's not the streaming, that's just my throat. So welcome to this channel. At this channel, we are dedicated towards ensuring your success in all these exams. In case you are new here, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and press the bell icon so that you start getting the notifications every single time we upload a highly useful, high quality, lovingly made content for you. So, my name is Vikrant. I am your personal coach for all things related to English, communication skills, strategy, mental aspects of preparation. So, if you have any of these concerns, any of these issues, please don't hesitate in reaching out to us. And our plan today is to talk about NMAT and SNAP, but then talking about these is only a tiny part of it. So I will give you an overview of the exam plus a little bit of detail of the English side of the things. So those areas that I teach, I will of course go ahead and dive a little deeper, but after that, we're not going to just talk, we're actually going to go ahead and practice. So I will take you through a mini mock, 20 questions, and since most of us have already presumably, there is no guarantee there of course, but presumably most of us are also preparing for the CAT exam. So you have practiced ample reading comprehension, para-jumble, etc. So I'll not dive into those aspects today, but we will get into those aspects too subsequently in some session here or there. In the batch, of course, we'll cover everything. I will also try to ensure that we do cover some of those things, some of those practice bits here on YouTube. So throughout the session, if you have any question, any concern, don't hesitate to use the chat window to let me know of your concern. So let's go ahead, let's start. So let's start with the NMAT. So what exactly is NMAT? We happen to have this fabulous college in our country which is known as NMIMS, Narsi Monji Institute of Management Studies, started in Mumbai and now it has campuses in quite a few other cities as well. So NMAT is Narsi Monji's admission test. So NMIMS Management Admission Test. And the other crucial question is, why are we talking about this exam now? Aren't we supposed to be focused on the CAT exam? CAT is coming, of course, so why not focus on that? But then the reason is, we are talking about it now because this is the first exam of what I call the MBA entrance exam season. Oh, Megamic, Soham, Sara, Priya, welcome. So, this is an exam that you can appear for, and I'll talk about this in greater detail. This is an exam that you can appear for even before the CAT exam. So, the deal is you can actually get into a bit of self-scheduling when it comes to NMAT. So they don't really give you this one particular date. They typically, what they do is that they open a window for you and then they ask you that, hey, if you want to write a test, write this particular test, you can go ahead and write it any time during that window. And if you want a date that you prefer, then you of course need to go ahead and act sooner. You need to go ahead and act earlier. Anant, a very good evening. How are you doing? So the registrations for NMAT exam are already open. You can go ahead and start writing this particular exam from today onwards. Not writing this exam, applying to this exam from today onwards, and the window that is given to you for the time being is that you can write this exam anywhere between 5th of November to 20th of December this year. So self-scheduling is one of those main things. Then the other interesting thing about this particular exam is that, okay, so here in fact I shouldn't even have written this, I've typed it. So this is the window that we have available this year. Then you can sit for this particular exam thrice and the best of the 3 score will be considered. However, there needs to be a gap of at least 2 weeks between 2 attempts. So that's something that makes it special. So you can actually write it even before the CAT, and it is significantly different from any of the other Indian B school exams that you are going to write. Now, how is it different? Let's go ahead and dive into this. So differences. Difference number 1, it is a computer adaptive test. Now, what do we mean by adaptive? Adaptive basically means that, let us say you start solving the paper. So you get this question 1. In all the other exams, you have this option of skipping that question if you don't want to attempt it. NMAT does not give you that option. You must go on to attempt that question. Now, what will happen is that you'd get this question either right or wrong. So if you get it right, the next question that you get will have a higher difficulty level, plus it will carry more marks. On the other hand, if you get that question wrong, the next question will have a lower difficulty level and it will carry fewer marks. So all the people who end up getting the different scores, it's not that the people who scored more marks attempted more questions or got more questions right. No, everybody who writes the NMAT attempts the exact same set of questions. Of course, some people may not finish the section within the time limit, but that leads to a lot of penalties. So most of us will attempt all the questions, right? But exact same number of questions, different scores because of the adaptivity. So 2 challenges, no negative marking, but you cannot afford to skip the questions. So that's one. So the things that are related to it are: cannot skip questions, no, avert negative marking. Of course, when you start getting it wrong, the marks assigned to a question reduce. Okay, then the exam is divided into 3 sections. Here are the 3 sections for you on the screen. So each of the 3 sections is a timed section just like the CAT, but unlike the CAT, every section does not follow the exact same duration. So language skills, 28 minutes. Well, look at the number of questions that you're asked to answer. Logical reasoning, so number of questions 36, but the time changes and you get to choose the order in which you want to attempt these 3 sections. So unlike the CAT, whereas the order is fixed, here you have that liberty. So whichever section that you're most comfortable with, you can actually go ahead and start with that section. Let me look at some of the messages that you have. If I keep attempting all questions correct, what is the highest difficulty level? Mechonomic, after a while, of course, the difficulty level would not really increase astronomically. At the end of the day, they are looking for somebody who is going to be a really sound candidate for a B school. And beyond a point, I mean, they are obviously not looking for Nobel laureates or people who can do PhD in obscure principles of mathematics. So, of course, that has to be aligned that way. Okay. So, you decide the sequence, but there are these 3 timed sections. Then the other thing is the level of difficulty is usually easier than the CAT across the board. You can get to check your score right after the exam, and that is because, you know, that's how you can decide whether you want to retake the exam or not. And when it comes to the colleges that you can apply to for NMAT and the cutoffs, etc., we can make another separate video and talk about it here. Okay. So then official scorecard is also mailed to you within 48 hours. Now talking about language skills, remember 36 questions, 28 minutes. What all do we get in this exam? So when it comes to the CAT exam, it's pretty uncomplicated, right? You have RC, you have VA, and within VA2, all the questions are going to be essentially paragraph based questions. Okay. But here you can get questions that are based on vocabulary. So within vocab, what kind of things get asked? Synonyms, antonyms, analogies. So you've seen those questions where they connect two words with those is to sign of ratio proportion, So those verbal analogy questions, then questions which give you a sentence with one or two blanks, and then closed test where they give you a paragraph with a few blanks. You can also get questions based on idioms. So these are the usual things asked under vocabulary. Then the other thing that you find in this exam is grammar. So most of the grammar questions are essentially error identification questions that test your understanding of quite a few different areas or aspects of grammar. So for example, you can have questions that depend on tenses, questions that depend on parts of speech, phrasal verbs, prepositions, and for that matter even other areas. But at the end of the day, they'll either give you a sentence and ask you to identify the error, or they give you a sentence with a part underlined which is rephrased in different ways, and then you have to pick up the best way out. So that's grammar, and then beyond this you will still get some VARC. So yes, reading comprehension is a part of Narsi Monji as well. The difficulty level is not as high as the CAT, but then the difficulty here comes from a different point. You don't get enough time, so that puts you under a lot of pressure when you're going through the passage. Then we have parajumbles. You can also get odd one out. You can also get para summary. So you should still be prepared for all those CAT kind of questions. But then a large chunk will actually come from grammar and vocabulary. Then the second segment, that is logical reasoning. Now this segment also has some areas that you would typically cover in your verbal classes, in your English classes. So for instance, so it's divided into two parts, verbal reasoning and non-verbal reasoning. So verbal reasoning is the segment that you'd master in your English classes. So you have these questions which are based on statements and arguments. Okay, so for instance, you can have statement assumption questions, you can have statement inference / conclusion questions, questions based on syllogisms, decision making. So it's not like the ZAT kind of decision making. You can probably call it more of a course of action questions here. And then in fact, similarly, you can get course of action questions separately too, and of course you get paragraph based critical reasoning. So that is, broadly speaking, the breadth of the syllabus that you need to prepare, that you need to master for English if you want to succeed in NMAT. And after that, let's go ahead and talk about this other exam which is approaching. That other exam is SNAP. And in the SNAP exam, once again, the test duration is 60 minutes. Number of questions, 60. And the paper is divided into 3 sections. The 3 sections are QA plus DI, then you have reasoning and you have English. But then these sections are not exactly timed sections. So unlike the CAT and the NMAT where you get a particular duration to go through one particular section, when it comes to SNAP, there is no sectional time limit, which means that you can go ahead and attempt the questions in whichever order during that entire period of 60 minutes. There is no sectional cutoff either when it comes to SNAP. Then if I talk about the overview of the paper, this is the marking scheme. The total number of attempts once again is just like NMAT, you can appear for it thrice. The dates this year are 8th of December, 15th of December and 21st of December. So I personally think it is a good thing. You know, there are times when a particular day may not turn out to be that great. So this gives you that kind of a leeway. Then let's move on and talk about the English segment of SNAP. So you get quite a few grammar based questions. Now within grammar based questions, they can offer us fill in the blanks. So typically a sentence with one blank, and in order to choose the correct option for that blank, you need to be good at grammar. Then you can of course have error identification. Then we also get questions occasionally based on tense, voice and narration. So you remember active and passive voice, direct and indirect speech from your school days, hopefully. Okay, then you have word order questions. So, or if I were to use a more grammatically appropriate term, I'll probably say these are syntax based questions that test your understanding of the most popular way of arranging different elements of sentence, different parts of speech within a particular sentence. So, very grammar. So, apart from these, you can actually expect a lot of questions that test your understanding of the foundational grammar basics. So, for example, they ask you part of speech questions. They can give you a sentence, underline a word and ask you what part of speech this is. They can give you a sentence and ask you what type of sentence this is. They can give you a sentence, underline say a clause and ask you for what type of clause that is. So to that extent you need to be fairly well versed with the basic terminology that is used in grammar. Okay, so that is something that you need to be ready with. Apart from that, you also get questions that are based on vocabulary. So within vocabulary, I think these first three are pretty straightforward, right? So you have synonyms and antonym questions, then questions based on idioms, questions based on spellings, but beyond that, you know, they at times get into some very technical things. For example, there have been a couple of years when they actually asked us something called compound words. So you've heard of these words that are made up of more than one part? For example, even if I look at a word like this, say website, web and site, blackberry, table lamp, car park, compound words, right? So they gave us 4 words and then asked us which of these is not a compound word, not made up of multiple, not made by joining multiple things. Then there have been questions that get into these root words and prefixes and suffixes, etc. So all of you who have been working with word power made easy by Norman Lewis, rejoice. You should be happy, because if you've gone through that, then these are the questions that you can definitely answer more competently, more comfortably. Then let's move on. Talking about English, you can also get questions based on verbal ability. So fill in the blanks, where unlike grammar ones where you require grammatical concepts, what you need here is more of vocabulary. Then you can get questions that are based on parajumbles and at times verbal analogy, and that is it. So this is one of those extremely rare exams that has not asked reading comprehension in quite a while. I think for the last 4 years they've not been asking RC at all. So it's not that they never had RCs, they of course had passages earlier. They also, for that matter, had paragraph based critical reasoning questions that got asked earlier, but for the last 4 odd years they have not really been going under that. Megomix, sir, what comes under verbal analogy? Are those 2 words? Oh, so they give you 2 words. For example, here is a take. Now they will ask you to figure out a relationship between these 2 words, and then there are going to be 4 answer choices in the case of SNAP. This question also appears in NMAT, where you get 5 answer choices. So from the given options, you'd find a pair which exhibits a similar relationship, and you need to go ahead and choose that as your answer. So it's a combination of vocabulary and reasoning, where in exams like SNAP and NMAT, it leans a little more towards vocabulary than reasoning. Okay, what else? I think I missed out on some of these questions that were asked. Arnav, yes, the answer to your question is yes. Best of 3, then Anant has already shared the answer to. Okay, verbal analogy is taken care of. I'm waiting for serious classes. Maybe they will start after 4-5 lectures. No, nomadic. I have a class scheduled with the batch. This is my first class practically, where I want to introduce you to what all gets asked, which is different from the CAT exam. And the very next class that I have with you, I am starting with grammar. Parts of speech and nouns is what we plan to begin with. Okay. Siddhant, how to remember analogies and idioms? This is a question that somebody else has also asked a while ago. How to, Vansh had asked this question a little while ago. So see, when it comes to vocabulary, it is a knowledge based area. So you either know the meaning of a word or you do not. You don't require brains for it, do you? So basically you just go ahead and start acquiring more and more words. Will that lead to your answering all the questions? We don't know, but that will definitely lead to increasing the probability of answering those questions successfully. Same goes for idioms. Idioms are just like words in that sense that you cannot really use brains or interpret them literally. So either know the meaning of an idiom or you do not. And therefore, I think the best thing that you can do in order to become better at any of these vocabulary based questions is start devoting some amount of time to vocabulary preparation every day. So I will talk about different strategies in which you can go ahead and learn new words, but until then maybe you can start allocating 20 to 30 minutes to vocabulary every day, where the goal in these 20-30 minutes is sit down and learn new words. That's it. Okay. So when you say, should I go for vocabulary now? Absolutely yes, there is no other way out actually. So I'm saying even if you're starting your preparation 3 days before the exam, it still makes sense to work on vocabulary. And that's a different story, that 3 days may not really add a lot of words to your kitty, but then that's how you start, that's how you become better at vocab. So the sooner you start, the better it is. So please make sure that you start devoting this time from today onwards. You can always go ahead and start with Word Power Made Easy by Norman Lewis. Considering that SNAP also asks us questions based on roots, prefixes and suffixes. So now that I've taken you through the overview, it's time for a mini mock. Now, ideally, if I create a mock that helps you prepare for NMAT and SNAP both, it should have a bit of RC, considering that NMAT asks you RC. It should ideally also ask you a para jumble or two. It should ask you a critical reasoning question or two, keeping NMAT in mind, but considering, once again, assuming that quite a few of you have already been preparing for the CAT and you know about RC, CR and VA, in this session I will limit myself to the areas that I want you to start focusing on straight away, apart from what you focus on for the CAT exam. Subsequently, in our classes during the rest of the course, I am going to take you through each one of those other things too, right? IMS accepts which attempt for NMAT, whichever attempt that you want. What has that got to do with the date of the CAT? So there is no relationship there, Anshika. So whether you appear for it before the CAT or after the CAT is immaterial, right? Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's start. Are you ready? So here are the directions for the first 3 questions for you. So please read these carefully. So each one of these 3 questions will give you a sentence. Within that sentence, you'll find a word that is underlined. Your job is to go to the answer choices and pick up a word which is nearest in meaning to the underlined word. I'm giving you a homework, okay? I could have said look for a synonym, but instead of asking for a synonym, what did I ask for? Nearest in meaning. Your homework is to think of the difference between these 2 directions. Think of the difference between asking for synonym and asking for nearest in meaning and how that may change the question. Okay. So each one of these questions, every vocabulary based question that I am going to ask you today will be a timed question. I will run a timer on my screen and your job is to push yourself and answer within that time. So let's go ahead. Here is your question number 1 and your 20 seconds start now. Answers. Okay guys, give me your answers. Come on. Oh, Parth, that's good. All right. So the correct answer here is, so what is repulse? Repulse means this is one of the meanings, to push away. So what is it that you push away? You push away someone or something which is unwanted, something that you did not like. For example, if somebody comes close to you and that person has a odor coming out from you, or has a bad smell, you'd be repulsed by that person. You would push that person away, or you'd maintain a distance from that person. So keeping that in mind, and then here we are talking about soldiers repulsing an enemy. So in this particular context, it has another meaning, which is to successfully stop a physical attack on you. So if somebody attacks you and you repulse it, it means that you have managed to successfully stop that attack. And that is why the correct answer here has to be D. And with that, let me get into the second question. Here is the question on your screen and your time starts now. And wow, I think everybody got this right. Fabulous, guys. Great job. Okay, so what do we have in this question? It asks us for a word which is closest to derogatory. So derogatory remarks are basically remarks which are disrespectful, right? So not showing respect, not giving your approval, that is derogatory. What is calumnious? When you're calumnious, you basically say things against a particular person. So you have this noun called calumny. Calumny essentially means making a statement about the other person which is not true and is designed to harm that person's reputation. So when your remarks are calumnious, it basically means that they are defamatory. So you are saying some negative things about that person. Compliment is to praise someone, so that is not going to be similar. Panegyrical is once again praising someone. A panegyric is a speech, a song through which you praise someone highly. So this is actually B and C are both antonyms. What is B? Ballyhoo basically means a lot of noise and activity, and that has no real purpose behind it. You've seen these young children who study in 2nd standard, 3rd standard, if their class teacher leaves that class unattended, the kind of ruckus that they create, that's ballyhoo. So not related to derogatory. So I think calumnious is not exactly a very close synonym, but given these answer choices, A is going to be the best option for us. And once again, I think all of you have managed to hit it out of the park. Okay, question number 3 on your screen and the timer is ticking. Five seconds to go. Okay, so when you do something in a perfunctory manner, it means that you do it quickly without exercising great care or interest. You just do it for the heck of it. Just finish it soon so that you can get rid of that task. That's perfunctory. So thorough and complete is opposite of it. Supercilious. Supercilious basically means arrogant. Let me give you one more synonym. Haughty. So it's not H-O-T-T-I-E haughty, it is H-A-U-G-H-T-Y haughty. So related to arrogant? Nope. But done as a routine but without interest? Maybe. Intensive. No interest, right? Done quickly without care or interest. So this is again opposite. So I think the best answer choice here is going to be option C. And Aditya has asked a question that I am done with word power made easy. What should I do next? So in case you are in that same boat, in case you're somebody who's done word power made easy, now ask yourself, do you like this particular approach? If yes, then you can go ahead and pick up some other book that is based on root words. So here are two recommendations. There is an author duo called Nuremberg and Rosenblum. They have written a nice book around it. You can use that. And then there is this another book which is written by Norman Lewis. He's written one more book. You can perhaps go ahead and pick it up. I am able to recall this one more book which was published by not able to recall the publication right now, but I will go ahead and share it. And then there are many more tools that you can use. I will go ahead and talk about this in greater detail in our vocabulary class. You know, you can follow quite a few, there are quite a few different approaches: root word approach, clustering approach, and association based methods, visual methods, auditory methods. Each one of these areas has some books that you can go ahead and follow, word lists. So more on that later, but until then, Nuremberg and Rosenblum, you can definitely start with that or pick up that other book published by Norman Lewis. Here is your next set of questions. Just like the previous ones, the only difference is, in the previous one I asked you for the word which is nearest in meaning. Here I am asking you for the word which is farthest in meaning. Mind you, I am not asking you for an antonym. So antonym and farthest may or may not be the same, but that's part of your homework, right? So let's go ahead and start question number 4 on your screen, and the clock is ticking. Alright, so what do we mean by gregarious? Since we talked about word power made easy, let's see. Gregarious has a root word called greg. Now greg essentially means group. Okay, so gregarious. Now this OUS here is a suffix which turns a word into an adjective. It tells you it's related to group or somehow connected to or found in group. So when I say rabbits are gregarious animals, rabbits live in groups. When I say a particular person is gregarious, it means that he loves to be surrounded by others. He's an outgoing, party-loving kind of an individual. So we are looking for the word which is farthest. So what is iridescent? Iridescent basically means shimmering, shining, you know, something that shows many bright colors and changes with movement. The colors change with movement. That's iridescent. What is unsociable? Somebody who's not social, somebody who does not like to meet people or spend time with them. Oh, see that? Okay, so this can be your answer. Okay, somebody who is above reproach. What does that mean? Reproach basically means to criticize somebody. Especially to criticize somebody for not doing something successfully. So if somebody is above reproach, then it means that he is above criticism. You cannot criticize him. So gregarious versus can't be criticized. No connection. And I don't even need to tell you what unlovable means. Some of us know this all too intimately. है ना, कोई मुझे प्यार नहीं करता. So, no connection here. So if gregarious loves to be surrounded by others, that is social. So unsociable obviously is going to be the best answer for you here. And with that, let's dive into the next question. On your screen, the clock is now ticking. Okay, so what do we mean by ostensibly? Let me give you a sentence. He has taken a week-long leave from work ostensibly for medical treatment, but in reality, he's in Goa with friends. So what is ostensibly? So ostensibly is something that appears to be a certain way, but in reality that is not true. It appears to be one thing when in reality it is something else, and we are looking for. Okay, so elaborately is something that involves a lot of detail, but then you can even lie with a lot of detail. Really ostensibly out of concern, really out of concern. Really does not really mean real, right? Had this word mean real, then it could have worked. But really, does that always mean real? Is that the meaning that you get from really? It's such a simple word that we at times struggle to describe it. Really can mean that something is a fact. Really can be used to say that we are certain or sure. That can be. How about vaguely? Vaguely can't be an antonym. How about candidly? If you're candid, then it means that you are direct. You are not diplomatic. You are not hiding anything. So you notice in ostensibly you say something which is not true in order to hide something else. Remember the example that I gave to you. Week-long leave ostensibly for medical treatment, but the truth is he's there in Goa. So he said he requires medical treatment, but the truth was something else. So he used that excuse to obfuscate things, hide things. Whereas when you are candid, you don't hide anything. You're direct, and you at times do not even care for how that other person may feel. So if I have to compare B and D, D is going to be a better antonym. D is going to be farther away than even B, and that is why our answer here must be option D. But then I'm really glad that a lot of you have gotten this right, and it appears that some of you have come in just about now. We are looking for an antonym. So let me give you, here is the next question. Once again, even in this question, your job is to pick up the word which is farthest, which is kind of antonym but not necessarily so. So here is the question and the clock is ticking. Three, two, one, go! So vituperative basically means full of angry criticism. Let me just clean up my C a little. So full of angry criticism, and you're looking for something which shows that you are not angry, not criticizing. Which word will tell us that we are not angry and are not criticizing somebody? Dude, those of you picking up C, are you sure that you're looking for an antonym? चलो सिनोनिम नहीं पूछा मैंने, इसीलिए शुरू से आना होता है क्लास में ताकि डायरेक्शंस पढ़ पाओ. अभी मुझे रियलाइज हो रहा है मुझे ना इनके साथ डायरेक्शंस हर एक क्वेश्चन के ऊपर ऐड करनी पड़ेंगी, बीच बीच में आके लोग फिर कंफ्यूज हो जाते हैं. ओके, सो कमेंडिंग इज praising. So can I say praise is opposite of criticism? And therefore our answer should be commending. A is, yeah, you're not angry, but then where is that opposite of criticism? And here you notice the noun is criticism. This is an adjective. So the core of the meaning here is you're criticizing rather harshly. And that is why the answer must be commending. C is a synonym. Virtuous has no relation with vituperative except for the fact that both of them start with V and have I immediately afterwards. Nothing else. So C it is. So that's about question number 6. Here is the next set of questions. So questions 7 to 11. These 5 questions are going to be focused on what? In each of these questions, I'll give you a sentence that is divided into 3 parts, A, B and C. Read each sentence to find out if there is any error in any of these parts. So if any of these parts happens to have a grammatical error, you will mark that part as your answer. In case all these 3 parts are grammatically sound, solid, there is nothing wrong with it, then go ahead and choose D as your answer. So basically these are going to be questions that test your ability to identify grammatical errors. So error identification, or in fact to make it even more accurate, grammatical error identification. Will I take vocabulary classes? I will of course take vocabulary classes where I'll tell you how you can go ahead and acquire new words. I'll also take you through quite a few practice questions, and whenever we practice vocab questions together, we always go on to learn some new words as well. So of course that's going to happen. Okay, so let's go ahead and shoot. Question number 7 on your screen, and the clock is ticking. Okay, so have you heard of something called regular and irregular verbs? So you know we conjugate verbs. Verbs happen to have the second form, third form, etc. So we say that the regular way of coming up with second or third form is to add ed to the word. For example, pick up any of those simpler words, simpler verbs. What can be simpler than this? So love, the second and third form is loved. So that's a regular verb. But if you come across a verb whose second and third forms are formed by adopting a different method. For example, when you look at go, the second form is went, the third is gone. When you look at read, you spell them in the exact same way, you just change the pronunciation. Read, read, read. Read, 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 right? So these are called irregular verbs. Now one such verb happens to be the verb hang, but then the deal is hang has a second and third form, hanged, but then hang also has a second and third form, which is hung. So whenever you talk about a person, कि भाई किसी बंदे को लटका दिया ताकि उसे मारा जा सके, whenever you hang a person so that you are able to give capital punishment to him or you are able to kill him, then you use hang. When you just want to affix something, hang something on a wall, on a roof or through a roof, then you use hung. So considering that there was a criminal who was given capital punishment, instead of hung, it should have been hanged. And that is why the correct answer here must be option B. So, if you want to read up a little more on this particular concept, go ahead and look at regular and irregular verbs. Gregarious means ambivert. Nope. Gregarious is social, loves living in groups. Ambivert is a person who in some aspects of his life is an introvert, but there are some other aspects of his life where he is an extrovert. So you notice introvert who does not like interacting much with others, would prefer spending his time alone. Extrovert is somebody who loves being surrounded by others and thrives on their energy. So you've seen there are some people who in their professional life are very outgoing, but in their personal life they don't like talking to people much. So two different aspects, two different types of personality, introvert and extrovert. So you call such people ambivert. Gregarious people are extroverts, they are not ambiverts. They are extroverts and not ambiverts. Okay. And sir, but it is antonym. What is an antonym of what? Gregarious is an antonym of ambivert? No. Ambivert has introvert and extrovert both the characteristics. Gregarious is extrovert, so not necessarily an antonym. The antonym will be introvert. Okay, here is the next one for you. Question number 8 on the screen, the clock is ticking. Three, two, one. What's your answer? Absolutely. Okay, so I've gotten 3 answers so far. All the 3 are right. This sentence has a problem with a preposition. You don't go home over work, you would go home after work. So C it is. And with that, here is the next one. Question number 9 on the screen, and I've started the timer. Let us see how good you are. Okay, so the correct answer here is B, and let me even tell you why. Instead of you and I, it should be I and you. Can you tell me why? Why I and you? Why not you and I? Remember that famous jingle, you and I in the beautiful world, green grass, blue sky. So you and I. So why are we not going with you and I? Why should it be I and you? Sangamitra, you're saying first person comes first. So the song was wrong. Abhi, it is mostly you and I. It's stating the first person first is actually an exception. There are only a handful of situations where you do that. Anant, not at all. It's most of the times the first person is actually kept at the end. So we will go ahead and talk about this concept in greater detail in our session on pronouns. So let's save it up for that. Until then, you know that there are these 3 types of pronouns: first person, second person, third person. So this concept basically tests your understanding of the sequence that we follow when we write all the 3 in a sentence. So there are situations where you write 3, 2, 1 or 2, 3, 1. Okay, they are used interchangeably, but then there are a few situations where you write 1, 2, 3. Okay, so We'll talk about that then. Okay, here is your next question on the screen and your clock is ticking. Karika, no, that's not right. Okay, so the correct answer in this particular question is option B, and the reason is instead of is it should be am. So you notice this entire part happens to be a clause. Now when a clause starts with who, the verb agrees with the noun that this word who, this pronoun who refers to. So in this particular case, who is referring to I. So this verb that you see right here, it should agree with I. So what do we use with I? I is or I am? I am, and that is why it should be B. So I, who am your friend, will guard your interests. A lot of you, when you read it out, you'd probably find it wrong. You say, I who am, isn't that wrong? But no, when it comes to grammar, you need to go ahead and write it as am. The rest of it is fine. So say, I am your friend and will guard your interests. Your interests are things. So in this particular case, interests are things that benefit you. So that's absolutely all right. And don't worry, this is a question that I deliberately chose because I know that majority of the people get it wrong. So now you've at least learned something new. I can go ahead and talk about this in greater depth, who is a particular type of pronoun. Within this category, you also get which and that. And then another issue that we face in such sentences is you need to use who here or whom. So who versus whom is another area that gets asked very frequently in the exam. So those are the kind of things that we'd go ahead and cover in the classes. Nakshatra, yeah, there are times when this can cause a problem, yes. Okay. Here is the last grammar question, not last, but of this set, of this type, the last question. Go ahead and share your answer with me. Alright, so for question number 11, the correct answer should be B. Instead of is, it should be has been. So this sentence was designed to test your understanding of tenses. So when you have a sentence that talks about an action which is going on at that moment, but it also tells you for how long it has been going on. When it also tells you the duration, you are not allowed to use present continuous tense. You are supposed to switch over to present perfect continuous tense. This is again another one of those high frequency mistakes that people who are not good at tense make. So once again, just all that you need to do at least for these things is attend the class where we'll work on tenses. And for the rest of your life, you won't have this problem anymore. So B it is. So here are the directions for the next set of questions. So 12 to 15 are going to be fill in the blank questions. So each one of these questions will give you a sentence. That sentence will have one or two blanks, and from the options, your job is to select the most appropriate one. So here is your question. And I know in this particular case 20 seconds can be a bit of a stretch, but okay, for the time being, indulge me. Try to solve it within this time limit. I'll give you an extra 10 seconds. So, I know it is basically going to be A versus D. I know this already. Which one should be chosen? What is the difference between refute and deny? So you notice, if you look at the core of refute, refute basically means to disprove. It means to disprove, to prove someone or something wrong. As a result, you will refute an argument, you will refute your opponents. When you merely say that something has not happened, you're not proving anything here. You're merely saying that it hasn't happened. There is no support, there is no proof or evidence or premises that are added here. In that kind of a situation, denying is going to be more suitable, and that is why the answer should be D and not A. Fortunately, this is not the difficulty level that you should expect in SNAP. NMAT can at times rarely reach this level. So notice two words which are very close to each other, but then if you do not know the exact meanings and then map those with the sentences, you may get these wrong. Okay, here is the next one. Go ahead. Let me start the timer too. These are the kind of questions that we should generally expect in these exams. So that's the difficulty level that you would normally find, more representative. So is this a serious step, or is this just something? Can you use notify here? That will not even be grammatically correct, because in order to use this you need to have to written before it. But oh, we do have a to. Okay, I was getting this reflection, I was not able to read it. So look at this or. Or gives you two situations, two options. Are you serious, or it is just said non-seriously? So does notify give you that idea of it is done non-seriously? No. Pacify. Are you serious, or you've said it just to make the critics happy, just to make the critics quiet? When you pacify somebody, you make someone peaceful. So somebody is angry, upset, agitated, criticizing you, make him peaceful. So are you serious, or is it said just so that the critics stop talking? That's a better word here. Plagiarize is to copy someone else's creation, someone else's writing, and pass them on as your own. No sense here. And what is motif? Motif is a pattern or a design. Okay, so in literature, in speech, motif can refer to an idea or a theme which is used in a speech, which is used in a piece of writing. And in fact, there is a connected word that we use quite often. That word is leitmotif. It is also spelt with a V at the end. It talks about a recurring theme within a play or a book or a poem, right? So the best answer here will be pacify. I think most of you have managed to get this right. Here is question number 14. So shoot. So a to blank, fill in the blank. I'll give you 10 extra seconds before we talk. So if you look at this context overall, then you should be able to arrive at A. Now, if we start eliminating, you notice I generally 2 blank questions, I take them blank by blank. Capsule gets ruled out because capsule is not a molecule. So C goes. Nutrients nourish the bacteria, so why would it be useful in medicine where you typically be fighting the bacteria? And similarly, steroids replicate bacteria, so what? So how is it useful for medicine? And that is why A. Okay. And here is the next one. Go ahead and give this one a shot. So I think your head start of 10 seconds also goes A or C. Okay. A half hour's drive north of Seoul along a highway lined with some kind of wire. So let's look at the first blank. Can it be barbed wire? What is barbed wire? Let me show it to you. This kind of wire, that's called a barbed wire. So can barbed go in this blank? Yes, it can. Lined with ironed wire. Do you iron a wire? No. Lined with fragile wire. Fragile is something which is brittle. Fragile is something that can be broken easily. So doesn't make sense. A highway lined with fragile wire contextually won't make any sense, and wire cannot be acerbic. Acerbic is something where you say hurtful things, say disparaging or derogatory things. So you notice if I go by just the first blank, barbed is the only word that fits in. So A has to be the answer. Let's look at this. So when something is a stone's throw away or within a spitting distance, see, even if you chose fragile, you'd notice spitting distance is not followed by away. If something is within spitting distance, it means it's very close. If something is a stone's throw away, once again, it means it's something very close. Crow's feet. Look at my eyes. So you've noticed people when they age, they have wrinkles on their face. I am of course one of those. But then some people also happen to have these fine lines around the edges of their eyes here in this particular area, here and here. So those lines, that's called a crow's feet. Won't fit in here. And blinking eye, in the blink of an eye is an idiom which means that something happened rather quickly or rapidly. Blinking eye is literally an eye that was blinking, so won't make any sense here. So the best take is A. Okay, directions. In each of these questions, I am going to give you an idiomatic expression. Select the most appropriate meaning for that idiom, and for the uninitiated, idioms are called muhavare in Hindi. Idioms are expressions which are not interpreted literally but metaphorically. So you cannot look at just the combination of words and then decide the meaning. So you either know their meaning or you do not know the meaning. Let's see how well you do at this. Okay, so 16th. A gentleman at large. What's your answer? Okay, so the correct answer here is A. A gentleman at large basically means a man without a job. So here is a sentence for you. Ever since he sold off his business, he is a gentleman at large. So basically a man who does not have a job. So the option that comes closest to it is a man without a serious occupation. So basically no serious job. So that is by A. Here is the next one. Ta-da! No flies on you. Okay, so your answers. So if we say that a person has no flies on him, it means that he is quick to understand things and cannot be fooled easily. I say, this man is brilliant, there are no flies on him. So, consequently, now that you know the meaning, I think the answer has to be option D. B and C actually go on to state the opposite idea, and someone who's neat and clean is, I can understand where you're coming from. You looked at no flies, so must be clean, but then idioms may not really be literal, so you know that. So now you know, at least now you know the meaning of this expression, and here is the next one. Go ahead, give it a shot. Whew. Warp and woof. So the correct answer here is option D, because warp and woof basically means foundation. It means base. So you know, hard work and consistency are the warp and woof of a successful aspirant. So hard work, consistency, warp and woof of a successful aspirant. So that's the foundation from which everything else happens. And then with that, let me take you back into the world of grammar. So directions for question 19. I'll give you a sentence. That sentence will be in either active voice or passive voice. Your job is to change the voice. And not even change the voice, your job is to pick up the answer choice that gives you the correct change in the voice. So here is the question. There is no timer because voice, speech, etc. can at times take longer to some people. So I will start discussing it once I get 7 answers. Okay, give me 7 answers and I'll start my discussion. Okay, so the correct answer here is option B. Now why B? So I noticed that a lot of us have picked up A. So look at this. Can. Now if I look at A and C, both of them use could. Now could is the past form of can. Now listen to this carefully. When we convert a sentence from active voice to passive voice, we do not change the tense of that sentence. The tense remains the same, we just use the passive form of that tense. So when you change can to could, you are changing the tense, you are going from present to past. That's not legit. In fact, whenever you come across any modal auxiliary verb in a active passive voice question, you never change it. So if you change it, if you turn it into past, that's going to be wrong. So A and C are ruled out. Now the other thing about passive voice is that we always add one more verb of the form be. So we add be and then you use the third form of the verb. Now in the case of a modal, you literally add be. In the case of other tenses, you can add is, MR, was, were, whatever, right? Some other form. So here you literally add be. So when I compare B versus D, you notice option B has the B, option D does not have that B, and that is why it is ruled out. So in case you were not comfortable with this, in case you got it wrong, it's okay. Active passive voice is a fairly simple area. Once again, it's just a mock where we are starting off things, but I am going to teach it to you in the classes. So I'll have you covered. All these major areas, all these concepts, we'll go ahead and cover those. Okay. So that's question number 19, and these are the directions for question 20. So in the previous case, I asked you to convert the voice. Now I am asking you to convert the narration. So you get a sentence which is in direct speech. You are supposed to change that direct speech into indirect speech, and here is that question on the screen for you. Let us see how much of your school days you recall. Thoda nostalgia feel ho raha hai, nostalgia. Megomic asks, where should I learn idioms from? They're just like vocabulary. You'd find lists of idioms. There are books and lists which are available. You can start with those. That should help. Okay, Parth is the first one to answer. So I have one answer. I need 7. So I have 5 answers. So Parth, Elo, Arnav, Khushi, Siddhant and Karika. That makes my 7 and Shubh. Okay, I'm greedy, couple of them more. Okay, so the correct answer is indeed D. I see one option which says C, but then you notice he said to me. Said to is converted into asked and not wanted. So direct indirect speech, that won't work. Moreover, notice another problem with option C. Do you think this is correct? Is it placed correctly? You use, so the helping verb comes before the subject when you form a question. Is this a question or an assertive sentence? Tell me. So that's another bit. So 2 reasons why we could have eliminated C. So the answer has to be option D. And in case you are somebody who's already joined us and you're here for the class, fabulous. In case you still haven't joined iQuanta but you're serious about NMAT and SNAP, let me pitch in a shameless plug. So at iQuanta we have started a very exhaustive NMAT and SNAP program which has tons of features. I mean, come to think of it, look at just this. More than 400 recorded videos, more than 160 hours of live classes, marathons, 10 mocks of SNAP and NMAT each, and you'll be taken through all of these things by some of the topmost faculty members in the country. And I hope by now you've heard of our 24/7 doubt solving. So do give it a shot. If you want to know more, do get in touch with us and we would love to help you. And here is a thought for you before I sign out from this session. And in case you enjoyed working with me, don't forget to like the video. And once again, if you're new here, do subscribe. I hope to see you in our NMAT and SNAP batch rather soon. Until then, stay safe, stay in touch. Okay. If you need us, you can drop a message in the chat, or better still, reach out to us through our support or our Facebook group. Right? So have a great evening. And I'll catch you guys later. I'll take a couple of questions. Parth, absolutely. You can start with Ren and Martin. Absolutely no issues there. Just try to go through 10 to 15 pages of Ren and Martin every day until you've read the book twice. Okay? Chale then. That's it from me today. I look forward to meeting you pretty soon. Take care. See you in the next one.